Hello everyone, Bella Malloy here, host of Seek Travel Ride, and welcome back to another midweek episode. These episodes are all about keeping your fire and stoke for bike travel alive and well. And this week I'm actually revisiting an old episode from the archives. That's right, I have chosen the episode featuring Isabella Murtagh, Isa, who I actually had the pleasure of cycling with this year for a day in May when I was up in Scotland. I can attest that Isa is a bit of a powerhouse and a machine. She also came along with a packet of Tim Tams, which for this Aussie was a very welcome sight. For those of you who don't know about Isa, something you should know is that she is a commuting powerhouse, an Audax powerhouse, and she's also one of the hosts of Towpath Talks. This is a monthly event held in Edinburgh, which recently went on a little hiatus, a little petty pause. But Towpath Talks is actually coming back with their first show launching on the 26th of September. I'm going to provide a link in the show notes so you can find out all about it. But in the meantime, let's listen back to my chat with Isa, where I learn all about how she got into bike travel, which all really started with her work commutes. And from there, she worked her way up to falling into the land of Audax events and riding longer and longer distances. This is a short excerpt of our full episode, and I have provided a link to the full episode in the show notes as well. Okay, so let's listen to what Isa has to say. Commuting by bicycle is a real significant part of your Monday to Friday life, really, isn't it? It is your deal.
Yes, yeah, it is. So when we moved to Scotland 10 years ago, well, we didn't have a car. And, well, I never owned a car before that. And I knew, actually, before moving to Scotland, when we lived in Australia, one of the postdocs did a year or 2 years in Edinburgh. And he said, I used to commute by bike to Heriot-Watt University. And there is a towpath there. And so before I moved here, I was like, well, I'm going to commute by bike once I move to Scotland. So the initial commute was 10 kilometers each way, but it was east to west. So it was into westerly wind most of the time and in the rain. And it was good training to get used to the Scottish weather and the wind. And then after 2 years, I got a job out in Livingston, which is about 25 kilometers west from Edinburgh. And I felt like there is no way it is possible to commute there or ride that far every day. But I tried the public transport. On the first day, I was let down by the public transport. So I was like, well, how about I try to cycle and I will do it for a week. So I did it for a week. And then I was like, well, maybe I will do it for a month and see how it feels. Like, I will be able to say, I cycled to Livingston for a month. And I did it for a month. And then I said, well, maybe I should get a better bike because I had just like a 50-pound mountain bike at the time. And so I got a better bike. So I couldn't then start taking the public transport again because I paid for the bike. So I calculated I had to cycle for 2.5 months to cover the cost of the bike in the train tickets. So I cycled for this 2.5 months. And then I was like, well, actually, I'm really enjoying it. So I'm not going back to the public transport. And so that was almost 8 years ago.
Wow.
And in the meantime, I did buy a car because we had the Beast from the East about 5 years ago. So there was just snow for quite a few weeks. So it was really difficult to get to work. So I did buy a car. And people at work said, like, well, now certainly you're not going to cycle anymore. I was like, well, I'm going to show you. So as soon as the snow melted, I was back on the bike. And I do it most days, unless it's too icy, because we do get temperatures at around 0 degrees for the winter. And the roads get quite icy. We get lots of black ice. So it's just not worth the risk. So there's few days a week I can drive.
I think I actually saw something in my research. I saw a post which wrapped up your last year statistics. I think if I remember correctly, I think it was 2023. I think there were like maybe, 15 days that you maybe didn't cycle commute because of the ice, which is pretty incredible when you think of an entire year, especially in Scotland.
Yeah, I think it was probably about that, like in January, maybe February. And then a couple of odd dates when I need to be home early or go for a haircut because we both have curly hair and not everyone cuts curly hair. So it's a bit difficult to get there, Carly.
Yes, I can totally resonate. And listeners of the show, if you don't know this about me, I have curly hair. It's what people see generally before they see me. And I was so heartwarmed when my screen popped up for this recording session. I can see Isabella here, and she has curls, and I loved it. But you're right. Not everyone knows how to cut our hair, right?
Yes, exactly. So when I had to go for a haircut, I had to drive to work. I was a bit annoyed with it. I was like, but I can't cycle. But, I don't make it like, I have to cycle every day because for whatever reasons, like, no, I don't have to. But cycling to work is my default option. So it's kind of driving to work that I kind of have to rearrange things, like think a different way. That's like, okay, what time do I need to leave to get to work when I drive? Or I need to dress into normal clothes to work instead of, my cycling clothes. But yeah, so the default option is cycling to work. And yeah, I really enjoy it because the route I take, it's quite scenic because Edinburgh is it's not a big city. You are out of the city quite quickly and there's just nice back roads and fields, which in spring they are covered in rapeseed and barley. And you see pheasants, you see deer, and also other people. So one of the things I really like about my commuting is having fixed working hours because I have to be in Livingston by 8:30. It's like seeing the same people. So sometimes they are the same cyclists that do similar route but in the opposite way, or the person who goes to get the paper at the same time every day, or dog walkers, or a lollipop lady at the school every morning, or like person who waits for a lift for a bus. Those people have fixed times just as I do in the morning. And, over the time you get to see them and you greet them. So, there is a range of people you see along the way, which I really, really like.
I love that element. And it reminds me when I was cycle commuting when I was living in Australia, that was exactly one of my favourite parts. It was funny, Isabella, I changed jobs and I was really lucky in that my workplace was like 2 kilometres away from where I lived. So perfect walking distance, right? But as someone who loves bikes, I still wanted to cycle commute, but 2 kilometres isn't far enough. So I used to make my commute longer and I'd go the long way to work, which would be like, I don't know, maybe 27 kilometres sometimes. But I remember part of the highlights of that cycle commute were seeing the same faces of people either riding the other way, commuting to work, just riding their bike, or, there was a couple that I used to see, 2 older women friends that would go for a walk together in a certain park. And it used to be a mental thing for me. I used to know if I was doing well time-wise by where I would see them on the cycle commute. Is this something you do? Like, do you know, like, oh, if I pass this person and I'm here, I'm going fast today? Or
Yeah, exactly. Because, you kind of know roughly the range where you see the same people. But some days I know I left late and I see them still in the same place. Like, they are late as well.
I wonder, have you ever made friends with anyone that you've passed on the way? Like, you must obviously give them a nod or say hello maybe, but have you ever actually stopped and found out who these people are?
So I started this a couple of years ago because there were some people also passing my workplace and I used to tell my colleagues oh, they are my friends. I have no idea what their name is. So next time I saw them, it's I waved them down. It's what is your name? Because I tell people you are my friend, but actually I don't know your name. So then, we had a wee chat. But also last Christmas, so just before Christmas, I thought, I really like, for winter, there are not that many people that you see regularly. And I thought oh, how about if I will have little gifts for my commuting people with a chocolate.
You're talking straight to my heart. I wish I was on your commute.
So I went to the shows. I got Lindt chocolates. So, like the little Linder balls. So not just any chocolates.
These are worth stopping for.
And I put them in little bags and I put little messages that I love seeing them on my commute and I wish them Merry Christmas. And so I had a little bag with them and I was hoping, I will see those people along the way. So I had the little bag with me and was cycling along. If I saw someone coming, I would just wave them down. I was like, here's something for you. With quite a few people, it was the first time we spoke to each other because, otherwise it was just a greeting. And I was like, hello. But, you see those people for, 3-4 years. And you see each other quite regularly. But I was like, hello, I'm such and such. It's here's something. And actually one guy says oh, I had a Christmas card for you as well, but I forgot to bring it. So, actually, it's not just me. There was someone who had a similar idea. So, yeah, I gave away, I think, about 10 of them. Because through winter there are not so many people, and some people I didn't manage to catch before Christmas. So then I was still in January. I was still carrying the chocolates to give them for the past Christmas. But yeah.
That is so cool that there's this little sort of underground community, if that makes sense. And you sort of know each other, and you know that you're part of like a special, unique group in a way as well. I was going to say, Isabella, you can tell you're commuting in Scotland when you can just carry little lint ball chocolates and on your commute and they're not going to melt.
Oh, yeah, no. No chance.
Something that occurred to me, actually, Isabella, knowing that you have been commuting such long distances for, 8 years now. And I don't want to overplay the fact that you're commuting in Scotland, but I think it's fair to say you definitely deal with some grim type of weather conditions. I followed your Instagram for a while now and I've seen the photos. It's always damp, it's always wet. Even if it's not raining, it's wet on the road. But I wonder how much that has actually held you in good stead for a lot of the long distance stuff that you do, like mentally, because I think having the conviction to continue to commute when, let's face it, probably more than 9 people out of 10 would often say, no, let's take the car today. Like that obviously must give you some sort of a mental edge. Do you agree with that idea?
Definitely, because, I think one of the worst weather I had was definitely on some of the commutes, and also before I got, better kit that, would keep me dry and warm, well, mostly warm. So whenever I do an Audax, usually the weather is not that bad because I've had worse. Often on some Audaxes, you will have people who said, oh, the wind was brutal. It's like, it's Scotland. It's nothing compared to, the winter winds, and storms that we get where you really struggle to stay up on a bike. So usually the Audaxes weather is better because they are usually sometime between March and November, because running Audax events through winter in Scotland, it's quite tricky because a lot of the time they will have to be cancelled because of the ice. So, people, not that many events are held through winter. When it's March to November, it's usually generally a bit warmer. So, even if you get wet, maybe you are not that cold.
What would be one of your most valuable pieces of commuting kit then? And I'm not talking mudguards on your bike. Everybody's got a piece of clothing. Like, what do you find that you can just rely on and depend on, and you were so happy that you found that's made commuting such a much more pleasant experience when you're dealing with this type of weather?
Well, so I'm still improving my wardrobe, to be honest, because I started commuting just in my bushwalking clothes. So because, it's just kind of stuff I brought from Australia. It's like, oh, I can cycle in those things. And, then I was cold and wet. And I think I only bought them last year. They are waterproof gloves and they make such a big difference. So my hands are not frozen right away when it's raining. And also anything that has windproof properties. So like gilets or jackets that they stop the wind, because I didn't have them until probably about 3 years ago. And no matter how many layers I put on, I was still cold. But now you put one layer and it stops the wind, and actually it's so much more pleasant. Yeah, the rain jackets, and only recently I started putting over trousers as well. Only got them last year. They're nothing fancy, but they mean that the bottoms that I have, they are not soaked through, so they're also easier to dry. But generally buying things that are Scottish weather suited. And I actually buy quite a few things from a company called Galibier. They're based in Northern Ireland, but they make kit that is very, very suitable for Scotland, and they're reasonably priced. Because as you know, Bella, cycling clothes are expensive. And if you want to buy a whole range of them, they're really, really expensive. So, but if you find something that is good quality, and you can start collecting your things, and you realize that actually you can feel quite comfortable when you're on a bike. It makes such a difference.
Oh, 100% agree. It's interesting how you say it has prepared you so well when it comes to Audax riding, because you find the weather is nowhere near as bad for that during an Audax. I guess before we get into the details of what an audax is, I just want to quickly ask you, what's probably the worst weather which event gave you the worst weather that you had to deal with from an audax perspective?
So actually it will be an audax event. It's called the Snow Roads, and it wasn't wet. It was in June, but the wind was really, really bad. And it's a 300-kilometer route through the Cairngorms National Park, and it takes quite a lot of high passes, Lecht and Glenshee and all sorts of different hills there where there are ski resorts. But the wind was really, really strong. We really, I struggled to get down some of the hills because the crosswinds were just so strong. So I had to walk down the hills. So it wasn't wet. It was just really, really strong wind. There was just a struggle over those 300 kilometers. And everyone was quite late to finish. And we finished at a local hall. We got food and bridies and soup. And you could just see everyone being completely zoned out and sitting there. It's like, what just happened? What was this ride?
Winds like that are so scary. I've experienced really bad strong winds and crosswinds particularly that have, blown you off a road and then also made me walk a bike down a hill. I never thought that I would have to do that because of wind before. And I actually put my hand up and saying, having done that during an event, I've never actually been 100% the same since that wind experience. I'm more concerned about really strong windy weather than I am about wet weather because of that. Are you a little bit similar now?
Yeah, because rain is just rain is not dangerous, right? But when you have windy and gusty weather, then, this is quite dangerous. And I know one person just got blown into a ditch. Nothing really happened. But, these are actual dangers, while rain is just it's not usually dangerous, right?
It's just more unpleasant, really. Let's get into the audax world. There will be listeners to the show that will know all about audaxes. I'm sure I've got many listeners there. Hello to you all who have participated in audax events, but there will also be people who are like, audax, what are these people talking about? So who best to describe this to someone than yourself, Isabella? If you were to introduce people to the concept of an audax, what would you tell them it is and what is it all about?
Yeah, so actually that's a very good question because, a few years ago, I was the same. It's like, what is an audax? And some of my colleagues actually completed a couple of events. So they actually explained what an audax is. So audax, it's a word that comes from Latin and it means audacious, bold. And basically it's a long distance bike ride when you have a set of controls that you have to go through. So there will be towns or maybe some crossroads and you have certain time window when you have to go through them. And generally the route is you can pick whatever route you want, but the organizers will provide you with usually with a GPS track, which is usually the best route to follow and the most scenic one. And so you can just use this GPS track and follow the route till you get to those so-called controls along the way. And either it's an info control that maybe you'll be asking you, what's the distance to such and such town or the signpost there? Or it will be just a village or a town and there will be a free control. So you just need to go to the shop and get a proof of passage, which is usually get a receipt if you buy something in a shop. Or you go to an ATM, you can get a bank statement. It will have the date and time where you pass this control. So audax is not a race. So actually there is the minimum time. So if you want to go very, very fast, you would still have to wait at the controls potentially. If you go faster than the maximum speed required, they don't want people to go very, very fast and make it a race. So you can go fast, but then to get the ride validated, you have to wait for your window to open at those controls as well. And usually the distances for those rides are between 200 kilometers. Then you've got 300 kilometers, 400, 600, 1,000, 1,200 kilometers, and 600 kilometers that are the kind of standard. But the most popular ones are 200 kilometers. And for each distance, at least in the UK, you get points. So if it's a 200 kilometers, you get 2 points. 300 kilometers, you get 3 points. And you kind of collect those points along the way. And at the end of the season, there are awards also for people with the highest number of points, if this is something you are interested in, collecting points.
You would have collected a lot of points.
Actually, I don't, because I do quite a lot of rides, but I don't always do them for points. So if you do a calendar event, which is organized by an organizer, then yeah, you get the points. But there is also the category DIY, so do it yourself. If you can't do like a weekend event, a calendar event organized, or you just don't want to, you can do your own ride and you can submit it. You have to follow certain rules about the route, and you can then submit your plan, go and do the route, then send the details for validation, and you can get the points for it. But I don't usually bother. So I still do the rides. I do them in Audax style, and I just don't really bother doing them for points.
I'm curious, Isabella, when you first learnt about Audax, what was then the first Audax that you decided to have a go at, and what distance was that?
So my first long ride was 326 kilometers, which is 200 miles, but it was not an Audax. It was inspired by something a couple of guys from Edinburgh Bike Forum did the year before. So they cycled to Carlisle, which is down in England, and it's 100 miles away from Edinburgh. And then they joined Ride to the Sun, which is a yearly event.
I've heard of this. Keep going. Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Just for our listeners, tell them about Ride to the Sun.
Yes, Ride to the Sun is an event organized by Fraser and Gary, which are two guys who live in Edinburgh. And about 10 years ago, they thought they wanted to do some training for the Ironman, but they struggled with family time. And they're like, how about if we ride through the night around the summer solstice? So they took a train to Carlisle, and I think they told a few people, like, we're going to do this. Anyone is welcome to join. And they started in the afternoon on Saturday and rode to Cramond Beach in Edinburgh for the sunrise. And so that's a 160-kilometer distance. And yeah, quite a few people turned up. And they decided to do it every year since. And now there's hundreds of people coming and doing this. And also scouts help to organize transportation there. So to help people to get to the start line, because there are not many bike spaces on the trains available to do it. So there's hundreds of people doing it on this route. But people also now make it part of their bigger adventures. So you don't have to organize the transport. You can cycle down from Edinburgh and cycle back with the Ride to the Sun, or make it even a bigger, like a 400k route. So the nice part of it is there will be hundreds of people along this route, and there will be a piper at top of the Beef Tab, which is one of the major climbs on this route. So there's a piper standing there through the night playing tunes. And then further on, there is also a rave. So through one of the valleys, there's a little village, which is most of the time through the night, there is nothing happening. But suddenly there is this rave, music and lights. So you stop for this, and there is usually bananas being given away and water. And then you continue for the sunrise to Cramond. I had this plan that I thought I will do this. But the Ride to the Sun usually runs on the nearest Saturday to the solstice, which is summer solstice, which is 22nd of June, I think. So they pick one of the weekends around it. But at the time, I used to work on Sundays, and I didn't get to take a day off on Sunday. So I thought, well, I'm not going to cycle 200 miles for the first time in my life and, go to work on Sunday morning. So yeah, I couldn't do the Ride to the Sun with everyone because I couldn't get the day off on a Sunday. So I decided to go on my own on a Friday. And I've never cycled more than 100 kilometers before that. So I decided I would go during the day instead of, cycling through the night. So I set off just after the sunrise, which is at about 4 a.m. in Scotland. At the time, in June, I got to Carlisle, to the park. There was nobody there because it was the day. I was 24 hours ahead of everyone. And then started cycling back home to Edinburgh. And I got home at around shortly before the sunset. So I had this lovely day just cycling on my own. I've never cycled that far from Edinburgh or from anywhere. I made it back.
Can I just say, Isabel, and for my listeners, my mouth's sort of half open hearing this story because, hang on, did you just say you'd never ridden more than 100 kilometres and yet you just turned up and decided on your own without the benefit of other people in an event to feel like that solidarity of other riding companions? You turned up to an event that's over 300 kilometres?
Yeah. Well,
whoa.
It's not even an event. It was just I'm going to cycle from home, cycle there, and then cycle back.
You didn't even get to be at the little village with the rave getting bananas. Wow. And you got through it. Did you ever doubt you could get through it?
Yes. Well, so I knew it was basically just doing my commute 10 times. And I was I can do it twice in a day. So, then it's only 8 more times.
So logical, of course. It's just 8 more times. Was that the mental maths you were playing to get you through? Each time you were going, well, now I've only got like 7 commutes left. Oh, there's another commute done. Now I've only got 6. Were you doing that type of a mental strategy to get you through?
So towards the end, once I got, I think, to like 8 times when I was coming back to Edinburgh, because I didn't really have map to follow. So, well, I had the Google Maps and I had the route. So whenever there was a turn, I had to stop and check where I'm supposed to go now. Luckily, the route is not too difficult. So I managed. I was just tracking the route on Strava, but I didn't like look at the screen all the time. And I saw signs to Edinburgh, which were in miles. So then I was converting miles to kilometers, and it's like, okay, so that's still just 2 more commutes. Okay, I can do 2 more commutes. Sure, yeah. And then so I was just using the signs to know how far I was from home, and it's like, that's only 1 more commute. Or I can do 1 more commute home. I will be home.
There you go, listeners. That is the end of that little excerpt. And if you actually missed this episode when it was first launched in early 2024, I have provided a link to the full episode where you can listen to the full interview in detail. And also, don't forget to check out Towpath Talks. If you live in or are near Edinburgh, the first session is on the 26th of September. And as I mentioned, Isa is one of the hosts there, and you get to meet her in person. I've provided links in the show notes. Okay, now it's time for my favourite part of the show, where I shout out you, one of my super fans who's been so magnanimous and supported the podcast and bought me some virtual coffees. This week I would like to shout out Jacob. Jacob has said, "Hey Bella, I want to say thanks for keeping me entertained on my ride. I'm currently doing the 4 Points Challenge of Australia. Whilst my ride is more of a supported fastest known time attempt, I recently bumped into a tourer by the name of Paulie James. He's doing the same as me virtually, however completely unsupported. I just had to share this with you as I think everyone needs to hear his story. I won't share too many details in case you do get in touch with him, and his Insta is I am Paulie James. Thanks again for the inspiration." Well, Jacob, first and foremost, you are out there doing a legendary, huge ride there. The 4 Points ride, for those of you who don't know, is connecting the 4 furthest points, north, south, east and west in Australia. And Jacob is currently going for a fastest known time attempt and doing quite well, I might add. And Jacob, you'll be happy to know I have reached out to Paulie James and we are going to try and link up for an episode. I feel like I need an episode with you as well. Regardless, thank you so much for being an awesome superfan and buying me some coffees. I hope that you are having a lot of coffees yourself there while you are smashing out this fastest known time attempt. Listeners, if you would like to do as Jacob has done and show your support for me and the podcast, you can also buy me some virtual coffees. Simply head to buymeacoffee.com/Seek Travel Ride. Buy me some coffees, but more importantly, tell me what is it that you're loving about the podcast and where's your next bike adventure going to take you. Until the next episode, I'm Bella Malloy. Thanks for listening.